We are in our very simple prototype, just learning the basics right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go into the animation part. This is the really fun screen right here. Now, you can adjust the animation in Figma easily. The animation setting basically, they are going to determine how the prototype is going to move from one frame to the next. Now, they can be used to create some pretty smooth transitions between pages, and they can define the behavior for actions, like you can expand things like menus, or drag between items in a list. You can open up like imagery and a gallery of some sort. Let's jump right into the actual settings though. You can actually adjust them in a few different ways. So if I jump in right here, right now, what I usually use for prototypes when it's like a wireframe, and I want to be quick and scrappy. And what that means is, let's view that. So when I click this literally, there's no animation happening. It's instantaneous. So, that's fine for the most part, but ultimately, it's not really nice. Now, you can basically adjust a few settings here related to the transition. So if I say click something like Smart Animate, I could do a couple of things. Or I can do things like move in. These are like these preset animation options, moving and move out. There's a little preview here. You can specify the direction that it happens. And now I have it like move out, that's what happens when I click the square. It moves right out of the screen, and you can specify like the direction. You can specify like the easing. Do I want it to be eased in, eased out? There's like some settings here to show you what that looks like. Do I want it to be bouncy? That one's pretty cool. So there's a couple of different things you can do. The other thing is you can also specify things like the duration, which is the little right corner over here. That's basically how long it takes to complete the transition. So 1000 MBS milliseconds is going to be basically be 1 second for that whole interaction or the whole animation. Now you can define different things. So what I usually like to do is like I will use something like Smart Animate, which is generally I think a lot of people like to use that. We can get into these details later, but Smart Animate is essentially pretty complex. Is how things work. The layer needs to be named the same for it to actually animate. So you'll see what this looks like. So we have this kind of little jumpiness. It's like dissolving into the other layer. And that's basically it. You can have like buttons, look really nice. You can just have it, be really simple. Let's see here, we have 300 Smart Animate. And let's see what difference that makes. You kind of like shrinks and grows. There's a bunch of different properties that Smart Intimate touches. Use the animation tab within Figma. So we're going to talking about the prototype settings. You can access and adjust all of these settings right here in your right sidebar just by clicking onto. So if I'm clicking here, it's not going to show up. They're going to show up like just basically based off the interaction that are here. There's overflow scrolling, which is like if you have a frame and you want it to scroll vertically, horizontally, you can set that here so you don't have to make a super long frame. You can also have, if I click onto the canvas, the actual prototype settings as a whole. So let's see this, just like from an overview perspective. You can select the device. So right now we have it in a iPhone 13 Pro. You can set the actual ability to preview that prototype. You can see what model it is if there's a model associated. Right now we just have it set to Graphite for the 13 Pro. You can also change the background color if you want to change A to white. You can do that. So that's a bit blinding. I like to just keep it pretty dark sometimes as well, so you can see all the flows over here. So I have a flow number 1, which is the only flow that we're working on right now. Let's get into the device. So over here, you're going to have a full device list. Essentially, it has a number of popular device resets, the dimensions of your prototype that we have. So if I go to the frame and I go to the design, these are your dimensions. Now basically what happens is I can see the dimensions of the prototypes as well to see if my frame is going to fit that prototype or if I need to modify the frame. So the great thing is if you use a frame preset, basically, if you start using the frame, from the panel over here on the right side, Figma is going to automatically select a device for you. So how they automatically select the iPhone 13 Pro, because when I first created, they selected them. So that's what's going to do it for you. The great thing is you can also do like a custom size version where it's going to fit. It's totally fine. You can also do like the presentation size, which is going to be like a full display to a size that essentially allowed it to display on the screen in its whole size. So that's how you select device. I'm going to click with the 13 Pro for now, and that's that. Now, in terms of the orientation, you can select that as well. Do you want to be like a horizontal or vertical? I mean, when it comes to web, it's different. But when it comes to a mobile, I'm mostly just designing in the vertical portrait version. It's not possible to switch between orientation within the actual prototype. So you like I said, mentioned before, I have the preview here that you can see what it's going to look like when you choose like a certain, phone or, model, stuff like that. So that's all going to be made available for you right here. Just super easy. And that's everything. So these are where you can access your prototype settings. We're going to be learning about how to present your prototype. So you want to use the presentation view while you build and test your prototype, or basically when you are ready to share it with somebody, because you can share the actual design editor file like this, and you can press this little button and go to present. So over here, I have my prototype up here. I can share it right there. So the great thing is you can preview the design, and on the device, you can present slides, and you can build and test interactions and animations. You can even run usable tests. So it's really great. Let's take a look at this whole presentation view in a little bit more detail. So you need to click that play button in that toolbar right there and get to that actual presentation. Now I'm going to keep it there. I'm actually going to close this because I do not like the white. So I'm going to leave, have to refresh that to be black, and it's still not showing up, but that's okay. Give it a little bit time. Okay, we have our prototype right here. Now, the other thing we need to think about is the presentation view. You can view a bunch of different things. So we have it here is we go up here to the toolbar. This is the sidebar menu. So if I click this, you can show and hide that left bar, sidebar. And if I want to click and comment, I can click here and leave a comment directly on the prototype. You can view and select flows. If there's more than one flow, they're going to show up here, and you can select between multiple, and you can set the prototype view options in the drop down. If I come here, and you can see different things in regard to like actual view options. You can interact with the hotspots or enter keyboard shortcuts within your prototypes. So if I just click off here, I can click over just on the screen. That's my hotspot. That's lighting up for me. I can also use arrows to move between the prototype. If I want you can disable things as well. If you want to restart your prototype, I just press R. So say over here, I press R, and it's going to restart the prototype from the beginning of the flow, and let's jump right in. So if we go into our presentation view options, we're going to see a bunch of different things. The first couple options here, there are several options just to adjust the scale. So essentially the scale determines what size we display the prototype on. So 100% is basically 100%. You're going to display the full size, and that's going to based on the size of the frame. And depending on the frame and the screen size. So it may result like crop prototype. You can see how it already pushed the dimensions up here. So we have the ability to fit. Now this is going to scale it down, and this is the default option. I like this option the best because it basically shrinks the prototype so that it's within the viewer's screen dimensions, and we have the ability to fill the screen. So this is another thing. It's going to actually scale it up or down to fill. So you're going to scale the prototype so that it fills the entire display on the screen size or resolution. And unlike it sounds a lot like Fit, but what it does that's a little bit different is that Fill allows a prototype to be scaled up to fill the larger screen, whereas Fit doesn't. And there we go. And now go down to some of these other options so we can disable the default keyboard navigation. If you won't be able to move like the space, you won't be able to hit outer space and all those different types of things. That allow you to move through. So people maybe you're sharing it will not have the option. You can basically show the resolved comments. You can show only your comments. So if you have a lot of comments on a prototype, you can access those. The other thing is a lot of people like to hide the hotspots clicking. So like this little indicator here, a lot of people like to hide, especially they don't want to give people hints, so you can do that. The other thing you can do is when you share your prototype, like a string internally, and you don't want it all these different types, like the UI elements up here, like to see who's in the prototype. You can actually show and hide the UI or even the sidebar. So you can hide the sidebar from there as well. So you can actually hide the whole UI. So people won't be able to do that, to see that. And you can actually see the little shortcut to get out of that view because you won't be able to access the UI again. So I'm going to use that shortcut to bring it back. But that's essentially how you would use this little drop down. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about is the full screen option. So let me jump up there. If I click that, it's basically going to make everything full screen. So I can go ahead and hide, and there we go. We have our full presentation, and this is how you present prototypes in Figma.